Today, we're getting into a story that's not just about the mind of a monster, but about a system that was completely failing. We're going to break down the case of Andrei Chikatilo, a name that became an absolute nightmare in the final years of the Soviet Union. Okay, let's just dive right in.
I want to start with just one number, 52. That's how many murders Andrei Chikatilo was officially convicted of. For over a decade, one single person was responsible for this unimaginable reign of terror. And 52, well, that's just the official count of the lives he brutally ended.
With that kind of brutality on that kind of scale, it's no surprise he earned an infamous title, the Butcher of Rostov. But here's the truly terrifying part. Behind that moniker was just a man, a guy who lived and worked and moved among his victims, completely unnoticed for years and years.
So, that's the big question, isn't it? Who was Andrei Chikatilo? How could a husband, a father, a teacher of all things, commit acts this horrifying? Well, in this first section, we're going to explore that massive contrast between his public life and his hidden, violent reality.
You know, Chikatilo's life began under about the harshest conditions you can imagine. Born in rural Ukraine back in 1936, his childhood was just a catalog of trauma. We're talking famine, war, deep emotional neglect. It's no wonder criminologists have spent so much time studying these early years, trying to find the origins of the man he would become.
And this is where it gets so jarring. On the surface, Chikatilo's life looked completely normal. He pursued higher education, he served in the army, he held respectable jobs. But underneath that facade was a man who was absolutely tormented by feelings of inadequacy, social anxiety, and, well, profound psychological issues. This duality, this split personality, was the key to his deception. It's how he hid in plain sight.
And the thing is, there were warning signs, big ones. He was fired from more than one teaching job because of allegations of inappropriate behavior with kids. I mean, these are huge, flashing red flags. But in a system with terrible communication and a habit of just looking the other way, they were completely ignored.
But look, his own personal demons were really only half of the equation. The other part of this story is about the deep, systemic flaws inside the Soviet state itself that literally allowed a killer to operate freely for more than a decade.
So in 1978, his hidden violence just erupted. His targets were the most vulnerable people he could find. Children, teenagers, young women, people he could lure to secluded areas. This was the start of a horrifying campaign that the authorities were completely unprepared to handle.
And this quote pretty much explains why they were so unprepared. There was this official belief in the Soviet Union that serial killers just didn't exist there. They were seen as a decadent, capitalist problem. This official denial meant that for years the police weren't even looking for a single killer.
So you see what happened, right? This ideology created the absolute perfect storm of failure. You had police departments in different regions that didn't share information. You had a total lack of modern techniques like behavioral profiling, and the entire investigation was hamstrung by this belief that they couldn't possibly be hunting a Soviet serial killer. But as the body count kept rising, you can only deny reality for so long. The official story started to crack. A massive, desperate manhunt was launched, and that brings us to the final phase of this story, the operation to finally bring the Butcher of Rostov to justice.
I mean, just look at how long his spree went on, more than a decade. From his first known murder in '78 through a terrifying escalation of violence in the mid-'80s, it took until 1990, 12 long years, for him to be arrested for the last time.
After they finally caught him, Chikatilo confessed. And as he talked, the full, shocking truth just came pouring out. All these horrifying stories that everyone thought were just isolated tragedies? Nope. They were all connected to this one man, confirming the public's absolute worst fears.
In 1992, he was officially convicted of 52 murders, solidifying his place as one of history's most prolific serial killers. 2 years later, in '94, he was executed, and that brought his story to a close. But the story of his impact, that was really just beginning.
So, what do we take away from all this? The case of Andrei Chikatilo isn't just some crazy true crime story. It's a critical lesson in criminal justice, in psychology, and in the sheer danger of ideological blindness.
His crimes forced a painful but really necessary reckoning. The case exposed these profound weaknesses in Soviet law enforcement and just shattered the state's illusion that it was somehow immune to this kind of Western evil.
But out of that tragedy came some crucial changes. In the aftermath, post-Soviet states had to start acknowledging these uncomfortable truths about crime. They slowly began to implement modern techniques like behavioral profiling and work on updating their justice systems. In a really grim way, this case served as a foundation for progress.
And that leaves us with a final, broader question that this case raises so powerfully. When the evidence right in front of you contradicts a deeply held belief, whether it's political or cultural or personal, how do you respond? The story of Andrei Chikatilo is a chilling reminder of the catastrophic consequences of choosing ideology over reality.